In the case of 6-year-old Jonbenet Ramsey, we know she's dead because we had a body. In the case of 3-year-old Madeleine McCann, in contrast, to this day, there are no answers. The big question behind both these cases, however, is obviously who done it.
Much from the approach down here, you can see straight into the room, so you can see the cots as you were walking in. So it never really felt like there was any real need to sort of go all the way into the room. You could see both cots and see them from there.
Madeleine McCann, who was 3 years old when she went missing from a holiday apartment in Portugal on the 3rd of May 2007, was born in May 2003. Her parents were both doctors and both practicing Roman Catholics, and they had 2 other children as well, 2-year-old twins. In spring 2007, they went on holiday to Portugal with a group of their friends. Altogether, there were 7 adults and 8 children. The night that Madeleine went missing from the ground floor apartment in Praia da Luz, sorry for my mispronunciation, that her parents were renting, she'd been left in her room sleeping with her 2 siblings around 8:30, which enabled her parents to go and have dinner with all their friends at a restaurant that was 55 metres away from their apartment. The place was a tapas restaurant, in fact, and it's where the family and all their friends dined every night of the holiday, and because of that, the whole group became known as the Tapas 7. The report of one member of the group, Jane Tanner, that she saw a man carry a child away from the resort 45 minutes before Madeleine was reported missing, became one of the most discussed aspects of Madeleine's disappearance. Now viewer, if I've got you hooked on the story so far, do subscribe, give the video a like, drop a comment when you're ready and donate. Hit the thanks button below, I'll appreciate you. Together with all their friends and all the children of their friends, the McCann family arrived on the 28th of April 2007 at Praia da Luz, a village in Portugal's Algarve region, for their 7-night spring holiday. That village has a population of 1,000 and it's known as Little Britain because of the concentration of British homeowners and holidaymakers in that area. The McCanns had booked their holiday through Mark Warner Limited and they were placed in apartment 5A, Rua Dr. Agostinho da Silva, sorry for my stupid pronunciation, that was owned by a retired teacher from Liverpool. That was in fact one of several privately owned properties that the company rented out. 5A was a 2-bedroom ground floor apartment in the 5th block of a group of apartments known as the Waterside Village, which lay on the perimeter of Mark Warner's Ocean Club Resort. Matthew and Rachel Oldfield were next door to the McCanns in 5B. Jane Tanner and Russell O'Brien were in 5D, while the Paynes and Diane Webster were on the 1st floor. Located on the corner of Rua Dr. Agostinho da Silva and Rua Dr. Cisco Gentle Martins, 5A was accessible to the public from 2 sides, 5A being of course where the McCanns were staying. Sliding glass patio doors in the living room at the back overlooked the Ocean Club's pool, tennis court, tapas restaurant and bar. The patio doors could be accessed via a public street, Rua Dr. Francisco Gentle Martins, where a small gate and a set of steps led to 5A's balcony and living room. 5A's front door was on the opposite side of the block from the Ocean Club, on Rua Dr. Agostinho da Silva. The McCann's children slept in a bedroom next to the front door, which the McCanns kept locked. The bedroom had one waist-high window with curtains and a metal exterior shutter, the latter being controlled by a cord inside the window. The McCanns kept the curtains and shutter closed throughout the holiday. The window overlooked a narrow walkway and a residence car park, which was separated from the street by a low wall. Madeleine slept in a single bed next to the bedroom door on the opposite side of the room from the window. The twins were in travel cots in the middle of the room. There was another single bed underneath the window. On Thursday the 3rd of May 2007, which was the penultimate day of the family's holiday, over breakfast, Madeleine asked her parents, "Why didn't you come when my brother and I cried last night?" I don't know what the parents did in response to those words from their daughter, but after Madeleine's disappearance, her parents wondered whether this meant that someone had entered the children's bedroom. Madeleine's mother also noticed a large brown stain on Madeleine's pyjama top. Madeleine's mother is called Kate and her father is called Jerry. The children spent the morning in the resort's kids club, then the family lunched at their apartment before heading to the pool. Kate took the last known photograph of Madeleine at 14:29 that afternoon, sitting by the pool next to her father and 2-year-old sister. The children returned to the kids club, and then at 6 p.m. their mother took them back to 5A, their apartment, while their father went for a tennis lesson. The McCanns put their children to bed around 7 o'clock. Madeleine was left asleep in short-sleeved pink and white Marks and Spencer's Eeyore pyjamas next to her comfort blanket and a soft toy cuddle cat. At 8:30 that evening, the parents left their apartment to go and have dinner with their friends in the Ocean Club's open-air tapas restaurant located on the other side of the pool. And as I say, that is something that they've been doing every night. And as I've also mentioned, 5A, the apartment of the McCanns, lay about 55 metres or 180 feet away from the restaurant, and that measurement is as the crow flies. However, getting to the restaurant involved walking along a public street to reach the doors of the Ocean Club Resort, and then walking through the resort to the other side of the pool, a distance of about 82 metres or 269 feet. The top of the apartment was visible from the tapas restaurant, but not the doors. The patio doors could be locked only from the inside, so the McCanns left them closed but unlocked with the curtains drawn so they could let themselves in that way when checking on the children, and they've been doing that every so often throughout the course of their dinner. And absolutely everyone in the world has asked, why the hell did you leave your 3 children alone just to go and have a fancy dinner? You should have either brought the children with you, or if it was too late, if it was their bedtime, you stay with your children. At the very least, one of you stays with your children, you fools. Nobody is saying that Madeleine deserved what happened to her, or that her parents deserved what happened to their daughter, apart from the ones who are saying that Madeleine's parents are the ones who did away with their daughter. I am not saying that at all.
There's absolutely no evidence that Madeleine is dead, and there's absolutely no evidence that we were involved in a disappearance. That is the conclusion.
Let me finish. That
is the conclusion of the process, and that's what we're here debating. The conclusions of the process versus the conclusions of the book.
So
they are not the same.
The conviction of the inspector.
Why would we be shocked? We're not denying the existence. Why would we be shocked? We're not denying the existence of the dogs or anything else. It's evidence we're interested in.
We used any sedative drugs or anything like that, and we have cooperated fully with the police. We'll answer any queries.
There's, in my opinion, no new suspect, and there will never be a new suspect unless and until the parents answer questions. Remember, Kate McCann, poor Madeleine's mom, refused to answer 48 questions.
Now,
and
Wendy,
hired
when
a team
was that?
of lawyers right away. But this is important. She refused right away to answer. She hired lawyers right away, refused to answer 48 questions. Things like, what did you see when you walked into the room where your child was supposed to be sleeping? I mean, I am so not interested in being dragged down a rabbit hole about fake suspects. And I think this is all related to a civil suit now underway in Portugal. The McCanns sued the former police chief for defamation.
Because he wrote
and now
this
Kate
book,
wants
this alleged tell-all book.
Yes.
But Wendy, hold on. Let me tell you the other side of this. Because there's a lot of evidence on the side of the parents being completely innocent as well. They say that the Portuguese police never took the case seriously. They never did the kind of investigation that we certainly would have done here in the United States, which is talking to other people at the vacation, where they were vacationing in Portugal. Furthermore, Kate and Jerry, the parents, have appealed to their country's Prime Minister, David Cameron, for help on this investigation. Is that something you do if you're trying to stay under the radar and you feel guilty?
Do you hire the nation's biggest defense attorneys, PR firms, and refuse to answer questions?
But it was something that could possibly have been prevented, but ultimately the reason that Madeleine went missing and has probably been murdered is because some evil person decided to abduct her and then kill her, assuming she's dead, and the police investigating the case believe she's dead. In the apartment, there was a child safety gate at the top of the steps from the patio and a low gate at the bottom, which led to the street. The resort staff had left a note in a message book at the swimming pool reception area asking that the same table which overlooked the apartments should be block booked for 8:30 for the McCanns and their friends every evening for the last 4 evenings of the holiday. The message said the group's children were asleep in the apartment. Kate, Madeleine's mother, believed that the abductor may have seen the note. The McCanns and their friends left the restaurant roughly every half hour, there you go, to check on their children. Jerry carried out the first check on 5A at around 9:05 in the evening. The children were asleep and all was well, except that he recalled having left the children's bedroom door slightly ajar, and now it stood almost wide open. He pulled it nearly closed again before returning to the restaurant. The sighting by Jane Tanner that I've already alluded to of a man carrying a child that night became an important part of the early investigation. Tanner had left the restaurant just after 9 o'clock to check on her own daughter. Oh my God, they were all at it, leaving their children uncared for just so they could go and have a bit of dinner, for crying out loud. Anyway, on her way she passed Jerry on Rua Dr. Francisco Gentle Martins on his way back to the restaurant from his 9:05 looking in on his children. Jerry had stopped to chat to a British holidaymaker, but neither man recalled having seen Tanner. This puzzled the Portuguese police given how narrow the street was and led them to accuse Tanner of having invented the sighting. Tanner told the police that at around 9:15, she had noticed a man carrying a young child walk across the junction of Rua Dr. Francisco Gentil Martins, or Dr. Francisco Gentil Martins, and Rua Dr. Agostinho da Silva, just ahead of her. He wasn't far from Madeleine's room, heading east away from the front of apartment 5A.
At the top of the road, I just saw somebody walking across the top of the road, so I was a reasonable distance away from them. And that person was carrying a child.
And you say a person, male or female?
Oh, a male.
And just describe that individual to us.
It's about probably 5'8" tall. He was taller than me, but not 6 foot, and so between those two. He was wearing quite a lot of clothes, and that's one thing in hindsight, again, I think was quite odd, because tourists, when they're abroad, Brits abroad would always have crop trousers or shorts or something, and he had sort of a big heavy jacket and trousers on.
So I went outside, and I was outside the apartment, and I met one of the other guests, and he was coming the other way with his kid, and I actually crossed the road to chat to him, and we were sort of chatting for about 5 minutes, and during that Jane went to check on her children, and it was at that point she was just past us going up to the corner, and she saw a man carrying a young girl with almost, she described independently the pyjamas that Madeleine had on, and she didn't see the child's face. She didn't, she saw me there. She'd seen that I'd just been in the apartment.
In the early days of the investigation, the direction in which he was walking was thought to be important because he was moving toward the home of Robert Murat, the 33-year-old British-Portuguese man who lived near apartment 5A and who became the case's first suspect. The child in the man's arms was wearing light-coloured pink pyjamas with a floral pattern and cuffs on the legs, very similar to what Madeleine had been wearing. Tanner described the man as white, dark-haired, 5'7", and of Southern European or Mediterranean appearance, 35 to 40 years old, wearing gold or beige trousers and a dark jacket. And she said that he didn't look like a tourist. According to Kate, Tanner passed the information to Portuguese police as soon as Madeleine was reported missing, but they didn't pass the description to the media until the 25th of May. Madeleine's fund, obviously a fund set up to help the search for Madeleine, hired a forensic artist to create an image of the man, which was released in October 2007. The sighting became important because it offered investigators a time frame for the abduction, but Scotland Yard came to view it as a red herring. In October 2013, they said that a British holidaymaker had been identified as the man that Tanner had seen. He had been returning to his apartment after collecting his daughter from the Ocean Club night creche. Scotland Yard took photographs of the man wearing the same or similar clothes to the ones that he was wearing on the night and standing in a pose similar to the one that Tanner reported. The pyjamas that his daughter had been wearing also matched Tanner's report. Operation Grange's lead detective, Detective Chief Inspector Andy Redwood, said that they were almost certain that the Tanner sighting was not related to the abduction. After the elimination of Robert Murat, police had very few leads to go on, but yet the search for Madeleine was exhaustive, extensive and relentless, and after all, it carries on even today. The case was all over the national papers and all over international papers. There was just so much publicity around the case. The parents were doing everything to find their daughter.
And I've spoken to a lot of people over the weeks, local people who'd given up a lot of time. You've talked about the support that they've given you. I met people who didn't go to work for more than a week because every day they were down on the beach searching the streets. Did you, as a mother, Kate, just sometimes think, I've got to go and be out there with them, I want to go and just physically look as well?
I mean, I did. I mean, we've been working really hard, really. Apart from the first 48 hours, as Jerry said, were incredibly difficult, and we were almost non-functioning, I'd say. But after that, you get strength from somewhere. We've certainly had loads of support, and that's given us strength.
But for many years, it was all for nothing. No perpetrator could be traced. That did change at some point, and I'm about to come on to that. Before this suspect, let's say, was traced, lots of theories were developed by the police. DCI Redwood, for instance, made clear that Operation Grange, the search for Madeleine McCann, was looking at a criminal act by a stranger, most likely a planned abduction or a burglary that Madeleine had disturbed. There'd been a fourfold increase in local burglaries between January and May 2007, including 2 in the McCann's block in the 17 days before Madeleine's disappearance. And during those burglaries, intruders had entered through windows. In an interview in April 2017, just before the 10th anniversary of Madeleine's disappearance, Scotland Yard Assistant Commissioner Mark Rowley appeared to dismiss the burglary hypothesis, while adding that it was not entirely ruled out. Referring to the suspects who might have been involved in burglaries in the area, he said that police had pretty much closed off that group of people. The remaining detectives were focusing on a small number of inquiries that they believed were significant. Also that month, there were claims that Scotland Yard was looking for a woman seen near apartment 5A at the time of Madeleine's disappearance. Redwood said in 2013 that on one reading of the evidence, the disappearance did look like a pre-planned abduction, which undoubtedly would have involved reconnaissance, basically inspecting a place, checking it out, making sure you're familiar with it so that you know what you're doing when you try, and not just try, but in this case succeed in stealing a person. Several witnesses described men hanging round near apartment 5A in the days before the disappearance and on the day itself. In May 2013, Scotland Yard wanted to trace 12 manual workers who were all at the Ocean Club when Madeleine disappeared, including 6 British cleaners in a white van who were offering their services to British expats. In October 2013, Scotland Yard and Crime Watch staged a reconstruction, which was broadcast in the UK, the Netherlands and Germany, during which they released e-fits of the men seen near apartment 5A and of the Smith sighting. Smith was another suspect who was eventually ruled out. Days after Crime Watch aired, Portugal's Attorney General reopened the Portuguese inquiry, citing new evidence. Another theory is that Madeleine, who was nearly 4 at the time, left the apartment by herself, perhaps to look for her parents, and was abducted by a passerby or fell into one of the open construction sites nearby. This is widely regarded as unlikely. According to her mother, Madeleine would have had to open the unlocked patio doors, close the curtains behind her, close the door again, open and close the child's gate at the top of the stairs, then open and close the gate that led to the street.
So I walked over to the bedroom door and I was about to close it too again, and as I did that it kind of slammed shut, and I thought, oh, there must be a draft, and I checked the door behind me and I hadn't left that open. And then I opened the door again of the children's bedroom just to leave it open a little bit, and that's when I really looked in, and I couldn't quite make out Madeleine in her bed, and I just looked and looked, and it was obviously quite dark. But then I realised she wasn't actually there, and I thought, well, she must have wandered through to our bedroom, and maybe that would explain why the door was open. So I went into our bedroom and she wasn't there, and that was the first time really that the panic hit. And I just ran back into her bedroom, and literally at that point, the curtains, which were closed, just kind of flew open. And that was when I noticed that the window was open as far as it could go, and the shutters outside had been raised all the way up. And I just knew straight away that someone had taken her.
In June 2020, German prosecutors stated that they had concrete evidence that a man called Christian Bruckner killed Madeleine McCann.
German investigators make no secret of their belief that this is the man responsible for the murder of Madeleine McCann.
However, formal charges against Bruckner by the court in Braunschweig, I've mispronounced that, Braunschweig, have been delayed due to confusion over where the man's last address in Germany was, and as such, which German court is responsible for the man's trial. Bruckner has convictions for several counts of child you-know-what abuse and drug trafficking, and in 2019 he was sent down for the rape of a 72-year-old American pensioner in the Algarve region of Portugal. The man is scheduled for release in the very month that I make this audio recording, September 2025. Bruckner was tried in 2024 in relation to 5 unrelated UAL offences that were committed in Portugal between 2000 and 2017, but he was acquitted of those charges by a court in Braunschweig, sorry for my mispronunciation, on the 8th of October 2024. On the 22nd of April 2022, Bruckner was given suspect status by the Portuguese authorities, meaning that they could extradite him to Portugal for formal questioning. Bruckner, who is believed to have been living in a borrowed Volkswagen camper van in the Algarve region at the time of Madeleine's disappearance, was ordered to be investigated regarding possible involvement by the public prosecutor in the Braunschweig court. The German Federal Criminal Police Office made a public appeal for information relating to the Madeleine McCann case on a crime programme that was broadcast by the public television station ZDF. German police stated that they received useful information in 2013 after the case was first featured on that programme, but that it took years to find substantial evidence for prosecution and that they still need more information.
We have evidence that he killed Madeleine McCann, but it's not the time for us to put it on a table and to decide if we could charge him or if we could go for an arrest warrant or something like that in the Medi case. Maybe we'll come to this point in the next year.
The prosecutors asked the public for information about both Bruckner's phone number and a number that had dialed him on the day of Madeleine's disappearance, with which Bruckner's number had a 30-minute connection. A British woman who had been Bruckner's girlfriend at the time of Madeleine's disappearance reported that the night before the abduction, Bruckner had told her, quote, "I have a job to do in Praia da Luz tomorrow. It's a horrible job, but it's something I have to do and it will change my life. You won't be seeing me for a while," unquote. Bruckner's car, a Jaguar XJR6, was registered to a new owner the day after Madeleine disappeared. Hans Christian Wolters from the Public Prosecutor's Office stated that they were starting proceedings under the presumption that Madeleine was dead due to Bruckner's criminal record. On the 27th of July 2020, German police began searching an allotment in Hanover in connection with the investigation. In October 2021, the Mirror reported that Wolters had become convinced that Bruckner abducted and murdered Madeleine. From the 23rd to the 25th of May 2023, Portuguese, German and British police conducted a search of an area just over a mile, 1.6 kilometres long, for possible evidence in the case. The area was on peninsula near the Arade Dam and the city of Silves, about 31 miles from where Madeleine was last seen on the 3rd of May 2007. Previously, a child's sock had been found in the searched area in 2008. The search came on request from Wolters with support from the German Federal Criminal Police Office, BKA, and was coordinated by the Deputy Director of Policia Judiciaria's Northern Directorate. According to cell phone geolocating, the cell phone of Bruckner, the mobile phone as we say in English or in England, was near Madeleine within 5 minutes of her disappearance. German investigators believe it to be possible that Bruckner killed Madeleine around the dam and threw her into the water. Between the 3rd and the 5th of June 2025, German police, with the permission and cooperation of Portuguese authorities, conducted a search of scrubland and abandoned buildings between Praia da Luz and the cottage where Bruckner lived at the time of the disappearance. Wasn't he living in a borrowed car at the time? Anyway, the search involved heavy machinery including JCBs and ground-penetrating radar. However, no evidence against Bruckner was found. As at the 17th of September 2025, Bruckner will not be facing any charges in relation to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. On the date that I just mentioned, Bruckner was released from prison after doing his sentence for the aforementioned rape of a 72-year-old woman. He was fitted with an electronic ankle tag and had to surrender his passport, but was told that there wasn't enough evidence against him in relation to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann for any charges to be brought against him in connection to that offence.
Leaving jail a free man, Christian Bruckner, convicted pedophile, rapist and prime suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, hiding in the back of his lawyer's car, his face concealed behind a bag. But he was exposed to the glare of the world's media as he left in a military-style police operation. A man described in court as being extremely dangerous, released today after serving a sentence for raping a woman in the same Portuguese resort where Madeleine vanished. The search for her has spanned continents and almost 2 decades. German prosecutors believe Bruckner's responsible, but have yet to produce the evidence they claim to hold.
Der hat seine Strafe abgesessen.
He has served his sentence, the prosecutor told us, and he is a free man, but he is also a dangerous criminal. There has only ever been this one suspect in our investigation, he added, and we have not found anything to exonerate him. Bruckner's also never been charged over Madeleine and strenuously denies any involvement. For her parents, though, there's still no resolution.
It may well be that the disappearance of Madeleine McCann remains an unsolved mystery forever.
To those of you who may want to ask, let me address very directly, I did not kill my daughter Jonbenet.
Let me assure you that I did not kill Jonbenet.
Jonbenet Ramsey was an American child who was killed at the age of 6 in her family home in Boulder, Colorado on Christmas Day 1996. Her body was found in the basement about 7 hours after she was reported missing. She'd sustained a fractured skull and a garrote was tied around her neck. The autopsy report stated that Jonbenet's official cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. Who killed this innocent 6-year-old girl in her own home on Christmas Day? Jonbenet was born on the 6th of August 1990 in Atlanta, Georgia, and she was the younger of the 2 children of Patricia Ramsey, known as Patsy, who died in 2006, having been born in 1956, and Jonbenet Ramsey, who was born in 1943. And I think we've all worked out where Jonbenet's name came from. Her middle name was her mother's name, Patricia. Jonbenet had an older brother named Burke, and he was born in 1987, and he's alive and well. Her father, John Ramsey, was a businessman who was the president of Access Graphics, a computer software company that later became a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. His first marriage had ended in divorce in 1978, and then in 1991 he moved with his new wife, Patsy, to Boulder, where the headquarters of Access Graphics was. Patsy Ramsey put her daughter in for various child beauty pageants. Jonbenet won the titles of America's Royal Miss, Little Miss Charlevoix, Little Miss Colorado, Colorado State All-Star Kids Cover Girl, and National Tiny Miss Beauty. Jonbenet's active role in child beauty pageants and Patsy's own reported pageant mother behaviour were reported by the media after the murder. Wasn't a good look for the mother, I would imagine.
Were you naive about letting her compete in pageants?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But your lesson was, what if we inadvertently exposed her to the killer?
Obviously you don't want to keep him locked in the house, but it's just an awareness. Not everyone around you is a nice, good person.
In 1997, approximately 6 months after Jonbenet's murder, the Ramseys moved to a new home in Atlanta after a summer at their vacation retreat in Charlevoix, Michigan. Patsy died of ovarian cancer at the age of 49 in 2006, and she was buried next to her daughter. At 5:52 a.m. on the 26th of December 1996, Jonbenet's mother, Patricia, made the following emergency call.
911 emergency. Police. What's going on? 15th Street. What's going on there, ma'am? We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please. Explain to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left and our daughter's gone. A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter? 6 years old. She's gone. 6 years old. How long ago was it? I don't know. I just found the note. And my daughter's gone. Does it say who took her? What? Does it say who took her? I don't know. There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note? It says SBTC. Victory. Please. Okay, what's your name? Are you Patsy Ramsey? I'm the mother. Oh my God. Please. I'm sending an officer over, okay? Please. Do you know how long she's been gone? No, I don't. Please, we just got out. Is she right here? Oh my God, please. Okay, well, there's somebody. I am, honey. Please. Take a deep breath, please. Okay? Hurry. Patsy.
In case you're wondering, I'll soon be sharing the content of the ransom note that Patsy mentioned in her call. As regards who killed Jonbenet, the Boulder police initially suspected that a long handwritten ransom note that was reportedly found in the home had been written by the mother Patsy, and that the note and the appearance of Jonbenet's body had been staged by Patsy and her husband. And they of course did that to cover up the killing. One would think then that it was because they were the ones who killed their little girl, but that's just my suggestion. It hasn't been proven because this is, of course, an unsolved case of murder.
If I told you right now that we have trace evidence that appears to link you to the death of Jonbenet, what would you tell me?
Let me assure you that I did not kill Jonbenet. I did not have anything to do with it. I love that child with my whole of my heart and soul.
Mr. Ramsey, did you kill Jonbenet?
No, I did not.
Mrs. Ramsey, did you kill your daughter?
No, I did not kill my daughter.
To those of you who may want to ask, let me address very directly, I did not kill my daughter Jonbenet. There have also been innuendos that she has been or was sexually molested. I can tell you those were the most hurtful innuendos to us as a family.
In 1999, the police and the district attorney, or DA, both said that Jonbenet's brother Burke, who was 9 years old at the time of his sister's murder, wasn't a suspect. Thank God for that, eh? Jonbenet's parents gave several televised interviews but resisted police questioning except on their own terms. In 2013, unsealed court documents revealed that a 1999 grand jury recommended filing charges against the Ramseys for permitting the child to be in a threatening situation. John and Patsy were also accused of hindering the prosecution of an unidentified person who had committed the crime of murder in the first degree and child you-know-what thingy, resulting in death. That was all a quotation, by the way. However, the DA determined that there was insufficient evidence to pursue a successful indictment. Don't know anything about who that unidentified person was, but clearly he or she was somebody that the parents of the murder victim wanted to protect for some reason. In 2002, a new DA took over the investigation from the police and primarily pursued the theory that an intruder had committed the killing. In 2003, trace DNA that was taken from Jonbenet's clothes was found to belong to an unknown male. Each family member's DNA had been excluded from this match. The DA sent the Ramseys a letter of apology in 2008, declaring that the family was completely cleared by the DNA results.
This is the only case where I think I have fundamentally turned as much as I have, thinking probably to no way. over the course of an intense investigation.
The new district attorney, Mary Lacey, took the extraordinary step of formally exonerating the Ramseys. But vindication didn't come soon enough for the Ramseys. Patsy died from ovarian cancer in 2006.
There we go, so much for my theory. In a 2015 interview, former Boulder police officer, in fact the police chief, Mark Beckner, said that, in his view, the perpetrator was the source of the unidentified DNA found on Jonbenet's clothing. In 2009, the Boulder police took the case back from the DA and reopened the investigation. National and international media coverage of the case focused on Jonbenet's brief beauty pageant career, as well as on her parents' wealth and the unusual evidence found in the case, particularly suggestions of SA.
JonBenet was a pedophile's dream come true.
Lou Smith, the late detective who was brought in by the Boulder District Attorney's Office to conduct an independent investigation, believed a sexual predator killed JonBenet.
I believe he brought her down to the farthest, deepest part of that basement and did very brutal things to her.
Media reports questioned how the police had handled the investigation and accused various members of the Ramsey family. Ramsey family members and friends have filed defamation suits against several media organisations. The crime itself is still considered a cold case and remains an open investigation, with the Boulder Police Department giving annual updates on the police department website. I think we're all wondering who was at home at the time of JonBenet's murder, what sort of security the family had. They were a wealthy family and presumably their wealth was known. Wealthy people, as you might know, tend to be targets for kidnappings and ransoms. Scott Gibbons, a neighbour, claimed that around midnight, while looking from his kitchen window, he saw the upper kitchen of the Ramsey residence lit up with dimmed lights. A neighbour, Melody Stanton, reported that she was awoken shortly after midnight by the sound of a child's scream coming from the Ramseys' home. Patsy Ramsey reported that she found a 2.5-page handwritten ransom note on the kitchen staircase in their home. The note demanded $118,000 for JonBenet's return. John pointed out to the police, who first arrived on the scene, that the amount was nearly identical to his Christmas bonus from the prior year, which suggested that someone who would have access to that information would be involved in the crime. Investigators looked at several theories behind the dollar amount demanded, considering employees at Access Graphics who may have known the amount of John's prior bonus. They also considered the possibility that the ransom demand was a reference to Psalm 118 and spoke to religious sources to determine possible relevance. The ransom note appears to echo film dialogue. The films Ruthless People, Ransom, Escape from New York, Speed and Dirty Harry are considered potential sources of the content of the note. The ransom note was unusually long. The FBI told the police that it was very unusual for such a note to be written at the crime scene. The police believed that the note was staged because it didn't have any fingerprints except for Patsy's, that she handled it, and it also had fingerprints from other people who had handled it once Patsy had shown it to them. And they also thought that it was staged because it included an unusual use of exclamation marks and initialisms. The note and a practice draft were written with a pen and notepad from the Ramsey home. According to a Colorado Bureau of Investigation report, a CBI report then, there were, quote, indications that the author of the ransom note is Patricia Ramsey, unquote. However, the evidence fell short of a definitive conclusion, and frankly, even if Patsy had written it herself for whatever mad reason, she was eliminated as a suspect in the murder of her daughter, just like everyone else in her immediate family. Michael Baden, a board-certified forensic pathologist who had consulted with both sides of the case, said he had never seen a note like it in his 60-year experience and that he didn't think it was written by an outside stranger. A federal court rules it highly unlikely that Patsy wrote the note, citing 6 certified handwriting experts. The court lamented the existence of self-proclaimed experts without credentials trying to enter the case by accusing Patsy without scientific basis. So, what did the ransom note say? Well, here's an extract from it. Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully, exclamation mark. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want to see her 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw £118,000 from your account. 100,000 will be in 100 bills and the remaining 18,000 in 20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attache to the bank, or an attaché case. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence earlier pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as the police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory. SBTC. That was in fact the whole of the ransom note, not an extract. I haven't yet mentioned who was at home at the moment of Jonbenet's murder. The only people known to have been in on the night of Jonbenet's murder were her immediate family, her mum, her dad and her brother. As we've seen, the ransom note contains specific instructions against contacting police and friends, but Patsy telephoned the police anyway at 5:52 a.m. She also called family and friends. 2 police officers responded to the call and arrived at the Ramsey home within 3 minutes. They conducted a cursory search of the house, but did not find any sign of forced entry. Officer Rick French went to the basement and came to a door that was secured by an additional wooden latch at the top of the door frame. He paused for a moment in front of the door, but walked away without opening it. French later explained that he was looking for an exit route used by the kidnapper. Since the wooden latch was holding the door closed from inside the house, the kidnapper couldn't have used that door and then closed the latch from the inside, and that ruled that out as a possible exit. Jonbenet's body, though, was later found behind that very door. With Jonbenet still missing before her body was found, of course, then, John made arrangements to pay the ransom. A forensics team was dispatched to the house. The team initially believed that the child had been kidnapped, and Jonbenet's bedroom was the only room in the house that was cordoned off to prevent contamination of evidence. No precautions were taken to prevent contamination of evidence in the rest of the house. Meanwhile, friends, victim advocate and the Ramsey family's minister arrived at the home to show support. Visitors picked up and cleaned surfaces in the kitchen, and in doing so they possibly destroyed evidence. Wasn't their fault. Boulder detective Linda Arndt arrived at around 8 a.m. in anticipation of receiving further instructions by the kidnappers, but there was never an attempt by anyone to claim the money.
That at one point she says John Ramsey took time out in the middle of the crisis to read his mail.
I remember seeing John in the kitchen, looking through his mail, and I made a note that he was looking at his mail, and then I wondered, where did your mail come from?
Isn't it possible maybe he was opening the mail looking for a clue from the kidnapper?
I don't know, and I don't speculate. It's a piece of information that I see. It's something that I note.
You thought it was unusual, however.
I can say that it stuck out.
10 a.m., the deadline imposed by the writer of the ransom note for a telephone call.
10 o'clock comes and goes, and there's no acknowledgement within the house from anyone that the deadline imposed by the author of the ransom note has come and gone.
Nobody said it's 10 o'clock and the kidnappers haven't called?
Nobody said that.
Was that something else you took note of?
Absolutely.
JonBenet's body was only found around 1 p.m. that day. This was when Detective Arndt asked John Ramsey and a family friend who'd come round to support, whose name was Fleet White, to search the house to see if, quote, anything seemed amiss, unquote. The two men started their search in the basement. John opened the latched door, which Officer French had overlooked, and he gave us the reason for that, and found his daughter's body in one of the rooms. Her mouth was covered with duct tape and a nylon cord was found around her wrists and her neck, and her torso was covered by a white blanket. John picked her body up and rushed upstairs. When JonBennet was moved, the crime scene was further contaminated and critical forensic evidence was therefore disturbed for the returning forensics team. Each of the Ramseys provided handwriting, blood and hair samples to the police. John and Patsy participated in a preliminary interview for more than 2 hours, and their son, Burke, was also interviewed within the first couple of weeks following his sister's murder. Some people still say it was someone in the family, the mother, the father, or even the brother. Some people say what the police said, it was an intruder who came in and did what he did to JonBennet. John Mark Carr, a 41-year-old school teacher, said it was him. He was arrested in Bangkok. It wasn't him. The DNA that he's got didn't match the DNA that was found on JonBenet's body, and also he couldn't tell the police anything about the murder that hadn't already been made public knowledge. I don't know why this guy made the confession that he made. The murder of JonBennet Ramsey, like the murder of Billy Joe Jenkins and what is presumed to be the murder of Madeleine McCann, remains today one of the most high-profile unsolved cases of murder. It's a case that attracted not only national attention but also global attention. A girl getting murdered in her own home and being found in a room that's locked from the inside, and yet all the family members are eliminated, and what an awful mystery. That is, unless what I'm about to show you is true.
The man responsible for JonBenet Ramsey's murder has been identified. He's alive. He confessed. The DNA matches. For most true crime cases, this would be the final chapter. But in the world of JonBenet, even justice feels complicated, because as of now, no official charges have been filed. Why? Legal sources close to the case say the DA is still preparing the formal indictment, possibly to include additional charges if other crimes surface. Some say there are jurisdictional hurdles. Others believe the delay is due to new victims potentially coming forward. Either way, the killer walks free, at least for now, under close surveillance.
If this video has gripped you, I recommend you to watch this one next. I'll meet you there.